The 9/11 attacks, the biggest news of the 21st century, a single day that changed the lives of Muslims around the world forever. On one side stood the world's greatest superpower, the United States of America. On the other, Osama bin Laden, the most wanted terrorist in the world, responsible for killing thousands. But this wasn't the first time someone had tried to destroy America's Twin Towers. These towers were among the tallest buildings in the world, and without question, the most famous. Almost 500 Hollywood movies had been filmed inside or around them, so whoever planned to bring them down knew exactly what they were doing. Because the moment the towers in New York's World Trade Center collapsed, it would instantly become the biggest news story on the planet. Back then, about 23 years ago, the global situation was very different. The Soviet Union had collapsed, and China wasn't powerful yet. That left America as the world's only true superpower, a nation no one dared to challenge. But that changed on September 11, 2001. That morning, 19 men arrived at 4 major US airports. Their mission? To hijack 4 commercial planes. According to every official report, since all 19 were Muslims, mostly from Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Lebanon, and the UAE, each plane had a 5-member hijacking team. Every man trained for months and assigned a specific role. Once the flights took off, within minutes they began to seize control. 15 minutes after takeoff, the first group stood up armed with small knives and box cutters and took over the aircraft. They killed both pilots and placed Mohammed Atta, their leader, in the cockpit. Passengers were forced to the back, told to stay silent. The hijackers announced that only their pilot, Mohammed Atta, could land the plane, but they never intended to land it. During the chaos, Atta accidentally pressed a radio button that connected him directly to New York Air Traffic Control. He said calmly, "We're returning to the airport. Everyone, stay seated." Controllers were confused, thinking the plane was returning due to an emergency. They cleared the runways, waiting for a flight that would never land. Moments later, Atta spoke again, still connected to the tower. His tone was eerily calm, as if nothing dangerous was happening. How could someone on such a deadly mission sound so relaxed? Originally, that plane was bound for Los Angeles from Boston, but Atta turned it sharply 100 degrees east, heading straight for New York City. As it descended rapidly, everyone assumed it was preparing to land. But instead, at 8:46 a.m., the plane crashed directly into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. At first, no one realized what had happened. The media reported it as a terrible accident. Meanwhile, President George W. Bush was sitting in a Florida classroom reading to children when his aide quietly told him about the crash. Even he thought it must have been an accident. But 30 minutes later, a second plane hijacked in the same way, turned toward New York under the control of Marwan al-Shayh, only 23 years old. At 9:03 a.m., live on television, millions watched as a second plane hit the South Tower at full speed. The illusion of an accident vanished instantly. Bush's aide whispered in his ear, "Mr. President, America is under attack." The US military went on full alert. All flights across the nation were grounded. But 2 hijacked planes were still in the sky. The third plane, piloted by Hani Hanga, turned toward Washington, D.C., flying dangerously low and fast. It crashed into the Pentagon, one of the most secure and important buildings in the world. Now, only one plane remained. That 4th aircraft, United Flight 93, was headed for Washington as well, likely targeting the US Capitol. American fighter jets were ordered to shoot it down if necessary, even if it meant killing all passengers. But the passengers had already learned what was happening. One of them called his wife, who told him, "They're lying. The other planes have crashed into buildings." Realizing this was a suicide mission, the passengers decided to fight back. They stormed the cockpit, and in the struggle, the hijacker Ziad Jarrah crashed the plane into a field in Pennsylvania. No one survived, but they prevented another catastrophe. Within an hour, the South Tower of the World Trade Center collapsed. Then the North Tower followed. Nearly 3,000 people were killed, including over 200 who jumped from the upper floors to escape the flames. Days later, Mohammed Atta's father gave an interview denying his son's involvement, blaming instead Israel's intelligence agency, Mossad, claiming Islam does not allow such attacks. In fact, many of the attackers came from wealthy families, not poor backgrounds. The cleanup of the debris in New York took months and cost nearly $9 billion, but the economic damage went far beyond that. The New York Stock Exchange crashed, and America's economy lost about $1.4 trillion. Companies like Berkshire Hathaway suffered huge losses, while defense and weapons manufacturers saw their stocks rise sharply because investors knew a new war was coming. And they were right. In a furious nation, all eyes turned to President Bush. He declared that the attacks were carried out not by a country, but by a terrorist organization, Al-Qaeda, led by Osama bin Laden, who was believed to be hiding in Afghanistan. When confronted, bin Laden publicly denied involvement in an interview with Al Jazeera, though his later statements caused global confusion. Islamic scholars and leaders worldwide condemned the attacks, calling them completely against Islamic teachings. Even the Grand Mufti of Mecca and Ayatollah Khomeini of Iran both said the attacks had nothing to do with Islam. Despite that, Islamophobia began to rise across Western countries. Muslims were attacked on the streets, women in hijabs were harassed, and many lost their jobs simply for being Muslim. The media began to debate whether Islam was truly a religion of peace. Meanwhile, the US demanded that Afghanistan's Taliban government hand over bin Laden and all Al-Qaeda leaders. The Taliban, led by Mullah Omar, refused, saying America had provided no proof and that Islam forbids betraying a guest. The US rejected every offer of negotiation. And so, just 1 month later, America invaded Afghanistan, launching what Bush called the War on Terror.